On February 28, 2026, just weeks ago, the world woke up to something nobody had seen in decades. Nearly 900 missiles and airstrikes rained down on Iran in just 12 hours. The supreme leader of Iran, one of the most powerful men in the Middle East for over 30 years, was dead. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that carries 1/5 of the world's entire oil supply, was closed. And oil prices? Analysts were asking whether we'd see $200 a barrel. But here's the question nobody on the news is asking. How did we get here? Because this war did not start in February 2026. It started over 70 years ago, and the story is far more shocking than anything you've seen on the news. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand everything. To understand today's war, we need to go back to 1953, to a man named Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh was Iran's democratically elected prime minister, and he did something that made the most powerful nations on earth very, very nervous. He nationalized Iran's oil. He said, "This oil belongs to the Iranian people, not to British or American companies." It was a bold move, a popular move, and it would cost him everything. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launched a secret operation called Operation Ajax. They engineered a coup. Mossadegh was overthrown, and in his place, they installed a monarch, the Shah of Iran, who would do exactly what the West wanted. For 26 years, the Shah ruled Iran with an iron fist, backed by American money and American weapons. The Iranian people suffered. They were watched, they were tortured, their voices were silenced. And then, in 1979, they exploded. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 changed everything. Millions of Iranians rose up and overthrew the Shah. A religious leader named Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, and almost immediately, Iran and America became bitter enemies. Later that same year, Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage, holding them for 444 days. The humiliation scarred America deeply, and America never forgot. Through the 1980s, the U.S. secretly backed Saddam Hussein's Iraq in a brutal 8-year war against Iran, a war that killed over 1 million people. Then came the sanctions, decade after decade of economic punishment. Iran's currency collapsed. Ordinary Iranians struggled to buy medicine, food, basic necessities, while their government quietly worked on something the world feared most: a nuclear program. Now, Iran always said it was for peaceful energy, but the United States and Israel believed otherwise. In 2015, a historic deal was reached, the JCPOA, where Iran agreed to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. For a brief moment, it looked like peace was possible. Then, in 2018, President Trump pulled the United States out of the deal. Sanctions returned, harder than ever. Iran's economy went into freefall, and the tensions started climbing again. In 2023, the Hamas attacks on Israel triggered a massive regional war. Israel struck Iranian allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, militias in Syria and Iraq. Iran's so-called axis of resistance was being dismantled piece by piece. Iran was being cornered. In June 2025, Israel and the United States launched a 12-day war, striking Iran's nuclear facilities directly. Iran's air defenses were torn apart. Their nuclear program was set back by years. And then, in December 2025 and January 2026, something happened inside Iran that changed the entire equation. The people of Iran, crushed by a collapsing economy, a worthless currency, and decades of broken promises, rose up in the largest protests since the Islamic Revolution. Millions took to the streets. The regime responded with horrifying violence. At least 30,000 people were killed in the crackdown.
President Trump issued a warning. Diplomatic talks in February 2026 collapsed, and then, February 28, 2026, before dawn, nearly 900 American and Israeli strikes hit Iran simultaneously, targeting missile sites, nuclear facilities, military bases, air defenses, and leadership bunkers. When the smoke cleared, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who had ruled Iran for 34 years, was dead. Dozens of top Iranian officials were killed alongside him. Iran's carefully built military machine was being dismantled in real time, but Iran hit back. Waves of missiles and drones rained down on Israel. U.S. military bases across the region were targeted. And then, in a move that stunned the world, Iran attacked its own neighbors: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. Iran struck the Ras Laffan LNG facility in Qatar, the world's largest liquefied natural gas complex. Fires raged. Global gas markets went into panic. And then, Israel struck the South Pars gas field, the single largest natural gas field on the planet, located off Iran's coast. The war had now spread across more than a dozen countries. Over 2,300 people had been killed. 3 million Iranians were displaced by the strikes. 18 hospitals had been hit. Ships stopped sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. Flights across the entire Middle East were grounded, and global oil prices exploded toward $105 a barrel, and analysts warned that $200 was no longer unthinkable. The world hadn't seen anything like this in a generation. 20,000 sailors were stranded at sea in the Persian Gulf, with the UN scrambling to negotiate a humanitarian corridor to get them out. And the question on everyone's lips was, would this become a world war? As of today, March 20th, 2026, the war is on day 20, and while the most intense strikes may have slowed slightly, the consequences are rippling across the entire world. Iran's supreme leadership has been shattered. The hold that Khamenei had over the country, as Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu put it, won't be transferred to anyone else. Iran's top security official, Ali Larijani, was also assassinated just days ago. The Gulf states are furious. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister declared that the little trust that remained in Iran has completely been shattered. Qatar expelled Iranian diplomats. Saudi Arabia warned that military options are on the table if Iran attacks again. The United States has requested an additional $200 billion in emergency war funding from Congress. In Europe, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the strikes, but allowed the US to use British military bases to intercept Iranian missiles. An Iranian drone struck a UK RAF base in Cyprus. Houthi rebels in Yemen declared their support for Iran, warning that their hands are on the trigger. The ripple effects are threatening to pull more and more countries into the conflict. President Trump, walking a careful line, said he was not sending ground troops into Iran. Netanyahu said Israel would pause strikes on Iranian energy sites at Trump's request. But make no mistake, the Middle East has fundamentally changed. A region that was already a powder keg has now been detonated, and the tremors are being felt in every country on Earth, at the petrol pump, in supermarket prices, in financial markets worldwide. So what does all of this mean for you, for us, for the world? Here's what history teaches us about this moment. The 1953 coup that overthrew Iran's democracy didn't just change Iran, it planted the seeds of resentment that would grow into 70 years of conflict, hostage crises, proxy wars, sanctions, terrorism, and now an open war that is shaking the global economy. Every action has consequences. Sometimes those consequences take decades to arrive, but they always arrive. The question now is what comes next. Will a post-Khamenei Iran eventually move towards freedom, as many Iranians who have been protesting and dying for change desperately hope? Or will a new hardliner seize power and continue the cycle? Will this war expand into something even larger, or will diplomacy somehow find a way through? Nobody knows, but one thing is certain. Understanding how we got here is the first step to understanding where we're going. And that is exactly why history matters. If this video helped you understand what's happening in the world right now, smash that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this channel. And if you're new here, subscribe, because every single week we break down the biggest events in history and the world today in a way that actually makes sense. Drop a comment below. Do you think this war will escalate further, or will diplomacy win? I read every single comment, and I'd love to know what you think. And before you go, check out this video right here. It explains the complete history of the Israel-Palestine conflict and how it connects to everything you just watched. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious.